Good afternoon. Welcome to the presentation on analyzing General Motors' statement of cash flow. Feel free to use this presentation's speaker notes and PowerPoint and the speaker notes on the PowerPoint for clarification. I will now be analyzing the cash flow statement. As I go over the operations, investing, and financing sections, the amounts of each section that I'm about to talk about will be on the PowerPoint itself. And then these notes will also be in the speaker notes. So operations, when it comes to equipment and operating leases, it is only natural for depreciation to happen. This has an effect on the cash flow due to how it changes the net income. Since the net income will be negatively affected by the depreciation expense is then added back to the net income. Depreciation also affects the amount of income tax, so it has a positive effect since there will be less income tax. Another major source of cash flow is from operations from the company itself. Again, these numbers are in the PowerPoint. Company operations that have not been discontinued but ongoing. Investing. General Motors was able to have a major cash inflow from collecting principals, which is money agreed to be paid back, as well as financing receivables, which is selling unpaid invoices. Second in investing is from termination of leased vehicles. These terminations have an effect on the income, which then lessens the tax. The cash flow then benefits from this action. In financing, proceeds from issuance of debt was by far the biggest inflow of cash, as you can see on the PowerPoint. This is the earnings from funds that are raised with an obligation to be paid back. A second instance is issuance of subsidiary, preferred, and common stock. That is to say, the positive flow of cash was generated by issuing stock of the smaller companies owned by General Motors. Just as operating is a major source of cash inflow, it is also a major source of cash outflow. As clearly seen with the $2.103 billion deficit spent on the other operating activities. When combined, General Motors' second biggest use of cash for operating activities is spent on various OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, and expenses. Pension contributions and OPEB payments have a cash outflow of $851 million. Pensions and OPEB income accounts for a loss of $765 million. The payments on OPEB and the income from OPEB negatively affects the cash flow with a combined total of $1.161 billion. General Motors spent $30.09 billion on purchasing finance receivables. This will eventually be a source of income when the money is collected. The next biggest source of outflow will be the acquisitions of available for sale marketable securities at $16.204 billion. These would be debt that has been purchased with the idea that a profit will be made from collection which has the capability of quick liquidation. By far, the biggest impact on financing cash flow is payments on debts with $72.663 billion. These would be more long-term debt, as these debts reach maturity after 3 months. Paying dividends is the second distant major expense, as they are an outflow of $669 million. The next PowerPoint will be a screenshot of the cash flow statements pointing out the cash inflow and the cash outflow. So the cash flow statement for operating activities shows a positive cash flow of $16.67 billion that is provided by operating activities. This makes close to a $10.35 billion difference than the net income of $6.3 $1.321 billion. The net income for General Motors was built mainly upon the profit from automobiles sales. The $108.673 billion from automobile sales and $97.539 billion in automobile cost of sales by far have the biggest effect on the net income. Financial investments and financial interest have the second largest impacts on the net income, with a distant second, $13.812 billion and $11.273 billion, respectively. However, there is a deceptive simplicity about this value. Cash flow operation activities does have a continuing operations. Cash flow operating activities does have continuing operations, which is $6.231 billion, as one of the largest values. But unlike net income, it is not the largest. Depreciation of equipment and operating leases, $7.178 billion, is the largest value. When combined with depreciation of property, $5.637 billion, leases nearly doubles. So the property leases nearly doubles the income from continued operations. Similar to the net income, the largest deficit comes from operating activities, $2.103 billion. The cash outflow is able to be examined more in the cash flow statement, and it is seen that the losses are mainly from different OPEB expenses, which with a combined total of $1.616 billion, and changes in operating assets and liabilities at $399 million. This varies from the net income, in which operating expenses had the largest impact. Upon further examination of the cash flow operating activities, it is seen how foreign currency transaction conversion and remeasurements have had a positive effect, which is $203 million, as well as a deferred tax provision, which is $925 million. Well, it seems logical that the net income is what shows how the company is performing. It can be misleading. Cash flow statements are important because it summarizes how cash is entering and exiting a company. However, how cash is entering and exiting a company, how well a company is managing their cash, and how well the company is raising capital to pay off its debts. Each activity that has an effect on company cash is revealed. If one were to solely examine the net income, company strengths and weaknesses could be overlooked. Currently, one of the biggest strengths of General Motors for generating cash is the continuing operations. If continuing operations is supported and keeps up with changing market, General Motors will continue to grow. Not only is it a major source of cash, but investments have been made for new products and capital generating technology for the future. This includes producing electric cars, autonomous vehicles, continuing to be a leader in SUVs and trucks, and developing and monetizing services and software. With more reliance on personal technology, General Motors will have the opportunity to enhance vehicles with new apps, programs, and subscriptions. Combine the previously mentioned with new and innovative automotive technologies with continuing the leasing programs, which is the most cash producing element on the cash flow statement, and General Motors has a bright future. While General Motors is making profit, it doesn't mean that there aren't any weaknesses or vulnerabilities. payments on debt is by far the biggest factor of cash outflow. This currently does not appear to be easing up in the near future due to ramifications of COVID-19. These complications are going to be felt for a while after the pandemic ends. The global market has been disrupted, cost of materials is rising, and the future liquidity of assets will be less reliable. Such side effects will make the plans for future technologies more expensive and harder to finance. General Motors' long-term strategy depends on a broad portfolio of electric automobiles and modern technology to be competitive and keep up with consumers. To do this, $27 billion will be invested in that sector. This adds to General Motors' weakness and vulnerability. However, this weakness supports the strength of the company, and the risk will be worth it for the reward. Thank you very much for listening and watching. I do encourage, for clarification, to visit the speaker notes on this presentation, as I'm sure that will clarify a few things. Thank you again. Have a good day.